Hi, Jessica. Hi, Heather.
Morning, Mary.
How are you guys? Oh, 1 second. Let me grab my phone. Okay, just gonna get Jeffrey to get on the call. What's going on? All right. I feel like I've gotten out of my pajamas in the last 2 days. Finally, there he is. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay. We're just gonna wait 1 more minute or so.
Okay. I always like to be early.
Yeah, me too. Hi, Heather. Okay, there we go. Well, so before we begin, if everyone could mute their volume, so when Jeffrey is speaking or someone wants to speak, just unmute. So then we're not hearing the background noise or if there's a dog in the house or whatever. So we can make this call as smooth as possible for everyone. Okay. I know some people are calling Vassia to make sure. Okay. Here we go. Yep. Let's give it a couple minutes because I can see now it's 10 and people are just going in on now to sign in. Yeah. I see your bowls in the back there, Jeffrey.
Yes. Yes. Maybe I should just play a little bit of bowl to get us going while everybody's getting on.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So I think we're going to begin, and as people start to come on, that'll be fine. So for everyone, some people who just came on at the very end, just wanted to let everyone know if we can just mute our volume. So when you do want to speak or have a question as well, just unmute it. Just want to make sure so we don't hear any background noise, and then we can really have a really beautiful call. I am really happy we're doing this. The reason why I wanted to do it was because I started to notice just the energy shift of, people being afraid. It's an uncertain time, and wanted to just kind of get us all maybe grounded and support each other because we are in it together. And so I've known Jeffrey now for a while. I've done my own work with Jeffrey. I highly, highly respect the work that he does, and called him up and thought it would be great if he would give his time to anyone out there, not only just H.U.B members, but anyone who might just need some support right now and maybe just a little bit of grounding. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey and go from there. And again, if any questions, please feel free. As I said, unmute your volume and please ask. We're here for the hour to support you in any possible way that you want. So Jeffrey, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let them know a little bit about yourself, and we can get started.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks for this opportunity. It's interesting. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to clients and other people, and I have this strong desire to help people through this difficult time because I have been on my journey for 17 years. For anyone that doesn't know me, I spent over 30 years running a family business, being very focused on that business and raising revenue and being profit focused. And at 50, I realized that there was something missing in my life, and I went on this journey of self-discovery, and I realized that I cared more about people than I did about profits. So I got out of the business, and eventually we sold the business and have dedicated myself to life coaching. My journey took a little bit of a side road to spirituality, and so now I call myself a spiritual life coach because spirituality has helped me get a better understanding of life, of human life and life beyond humanity. The period of time that we're in is very interesting because I think it provides an opportunity for a major shift in humanity. And this morning, as I was showering, what came to me is something that we could talk about, and that is that our perspective creates our reality. And there are a lot of different realities out there with COVID-19. And anybody that is into numerology, if you check numerology, you'll find that 19 is a very significant number. And maybe I'll just read for a second what Doreen Virtue says about the number 19. It says, keep your mind focused on helping yourself and others lead healthier and more peaceful lives. Stay positive and optimistic about your divine life mission. And so it's rather interesting that we've given this virus the name COVID-19. So, I'm here to support and answer any questions, but what I'd like to say first is that your perspective on what's happening is going to determine your reality. And we're in a period of great extremes. I see people who are very fearful, and I also see people who are very loving and believe that we're in a period of great opportunity. Other people think that we're in a period of great calamity, so and great disaster. If you want to get through this, I think the best way to do so is decide which perspective you want, and then realize that the greatest power you have is the power of personal choice as to how you wish to look at the situation. So we could look at this distancing, social distancing. It's interesting, I heard this morning someone thought they should rename it physical distancing, because from a social perspective, here we are. We're all together, right? So we're not distanced. We maybe are in our own homes, but we are certainly together. So the connection doesn't have to be lost. So we could look at restaurants closing here in Toronto and businesses closing, and I know that everyone is going to be going through some difficulty, some challenges, financial, emotional, mental. The key is to decide where you want to position yourself on the continuum. Do you want to see this as calamity, or do you want to see this as opportunity? And if you want to see it as opportunity, then you have to, it's like that Cherokee wisdom and the two wolves. Which wolf do you want to feed? And if you want to feed optimism, then you have to be aware of your thoughts and your feelings, and then you have to use personal choice to decide how you're going to show up. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Because again, we want to make sure that we support everyone and answer any questions. I know that a few people have just commented. I know Michelle Mahar said that she has seen both extremes as well. People panicking and calm. I have as well. And I've also noticed myself, as positive and calm that I am, there are moments that that energy comes up and the panic starts to come and I have to try and deal with what's going on. So maybe, Jeffrey, what would you say about that? Where, someone who is calm or sees what's happening and how it can help us, but there are moments that, you start to shift and start to feel nervous.
Yeah, had that day yesterday. So no matter how long you've been doing this work, I really believe from a spiritual perspective, this is an opportunity, and we are all going to be challenged, and we're all going to be triggered, because I really believe that we're in this energy of extreme. And so if you were a little bit triggered by what someone did or said in the past, you're going to be a lot triggered right now. What can we do, I believe, is to be more mindful, to be more conscious, to tap into what I would call the observer, that part of you that is sort of watching on. And sometimes being the observer, it's hard to do it in the moment. Yesterday was a bit of a challenging energy day for me, and today I'm going to be taking time to digest that, to look at what caused me to get triggered and what could I do about it. So don't panic if you don't get it in the moment. I really believe that this forced isolation is giving us an opportunity for some time to reflect. We all have a lot of available time. The question is, what are you going to choose to do with that time? Are you going to sit in front of the TV and eat your popcorn and watch Netflix? Or are you going to journal? Are you going to meditate? Are you going to reflect on life? And so that personal choice is really, really important. That I channel an entity called Shaltazar, and Shaltazar has made it so clear to me that this free choice is critical for how we're going to get through this crisis. And it is a crisis. It's a crisis of opportunity. But how we get through it is how we're going to show up, what choices we're going to make. Are you going to take some time to meditate? It has been a long time since I have channeled Shaltazar in a journaling way, which is how I first began doing it. I channeled Shaltazar in other ways, and I'm getting this strong urge with this extra time that I have, although my coaching practice is pretty busy supporting people. I'm getting this strong urge to go back and do some journal channeling. So what I would suggest is for everyone, take out a piece of paper and make a list when you are relatively calm of what you would like to do that you have not had time to do in the next few weeks. What would you like to do with some of this self-isolation time? And have a look at that list. It's really interesting. Back when I was in business, when things were really booming, I would come up with so many ideas and so many great ways of changing and expanding our business. And of course, we were so busy, serving our customers that we never got around to it. And I would always say, well, when business quietens down, when things slow down, I'm going to implement these ideas. And then a recession would come, okay? And I was so depressed and I was so frustrated and so fearful, I never ever brought up those ideas. That was the time that I could have been doing something useful. That's where I could have taken out my parking lot of ideas and started to work on them. But I was so depressed and frustrated because of the economics of the recession that I never did that. And so we're going to be in difficult emotional times, but that doesn't mean that we can't shift that energy and to more positivity, to be looking at the things that we never got around to doing. Wouldn't it be sad if in our busy lives we always said, if I only had time to do, fill in the blank, right? And we're going to have this period of time, it could be days, weeks, I don't know how long, where we do have that time and space, and we don't use that opportunity. Wouldn't that be sad if we didn't take advantage of the opportunity of this self-isolation time to do some of the things that we wanted to do?
Well, that's interesting that you say that, Jeffrey. I noticed my daughter, and I got the idea from her. Since she's in the house and can't really go anywhere, she made a bucket list. She made a bucket list of what she can do during this time, that she can feel like, hey, I did something different. Well, she read a book. She's reading a book, and I found that interesting, her bucket list. And I thought, you know what, during this time, what is my bucket list? What, we say bucket list for when we're busy. Oh, I want to travel. No, you can create, certain things to do right now. I've actually wanted to get back into yoga. So I've started to put on those YouTube tapes, which has calmed me down as well. Spending more time with my family. We're in this, so spending more time talking to each other. It doesn't take away with what is going on. And I'm trying not to say that I'm trying to not look at what is happening. But I think we still have to stay in a positive way and see what we can do during this time.
Yeah, I think you raise a great point, and that is the fact that if we are to help humanity, if we are to help the collective, we need to help ourselves first. You cannot give to others what you do not have yourself. So that if you are coming from fear, you're not going to help the collective. If you go within, if you do that yoga, if you do that bucket list, if you do some things that calm you down, then you will be able to add to the collective. When you go to the grocery store and there's this long lineup and there's this panic, right? Smile at the person in lines. Strike up a conversation with the cashier. I've done that in a few places. They're so overwhelmed and they're so overworked, and they could use a smile and they could use some support. And I remember just the other day, I was leaving the cashier line and I said, "Don't forget to breathe and relax." And she gave me a little bit of a smile. So it's really, really important for us to take care of ourselves so that we'll be able to show up in a positive way. There's going to be a lot of pulls and pushes, and you're going to feel a lot of things that are going to move you off. And it's really important that if you're going to be there for your family, you have to take care of yourself first. It's the old oxygen on the airplane kind of thing. You need to take care of yourself. And so, as well as that bucket list, I would also encourage you to make a self-care list. What is it that you want to do? Yeah, what do you want to do to self-care? Because if you're going to be the calm in the storm, and there's lots of storm, because if you're on this call, you're interested in this, what about all of the people who are just at home worrying and stressing? And there is going to be a tremendous economic effect that we're going to have. We're going to have to support each other not only through this, but after this. Okay, this is uncharted territory. I'm 67 years old. I did not live through either world wars, but I would imagine this is what a world war would feel like. The only difference is we have an invisible enemy. And I think that instead of being mad at that enemy, we could look at that enemy as an opportunity to change humanity. And in order to change humanity, we have to change ourselves. So I'm going to suggest a third list. There it is. I'm big on lists. Just because if you put those lists, you're now taking those ideas and you're formulating them and you're putting them in writing. And the third list is, how do I want to change through this difficult time? What is it that I personally want to be different on the other end? Do I want to be more optimistic? Do I want to be more caring? Do I want to be more mindful? How do I want to change as a person? This is the opportunity we have when so much of the outside world is being shut off. And so there's no excuse to just flit this time away. There is so much that we can do. We think that the doing is going to theater and going to sports. And, I really feel bad for those people that are addicted to sports. I'm really not into sports at all. But I really feel bad for those people because they're into withdrawal. They're into big time withdrawal because they can't watch their sports. Well, what else can they be doing? So again, that third list is, how do I want to change? How do I want to be different on the other side of this?
We have a couple of questions or comments, so I just want to go through that. But that's a great point, Jeffrey, and that's why for me why I wanted to do this call. I mean, we've done work together, and I just find you a gem. So I felt like, how can I share that now with people and just to give them the support that they need. Catherine has a question. She said her concern has been more for my parents who don't seem to grasp how serious this is. My father would not survive this if he contracts the virus. She goes on to say, and with all the hoarding, they couldn't get the supplies they need, and my mother went to 4 different stores, increasing her risk of exposure. So she's normally a calm influence in stressful situations, but this particular issue is weighing on me.
Okay, that's interesting because I have a son who's really concerned that I'm not taking it seriously. That's only going to aggravate you. So I really think, first of all, it's really important to respect everybody's choice in how they handle this, because maybe it appears to you that a person is not taking it seriously, but if you try to intensify the seriousness to which they think the issue is, you may be doing them more harm because you're creating fear that they can't really handle. I'm a really firm believer that there's the physical manifestations of this virus, but there's also the mental emotional. Fear is not going to help anyone fight this virus. I truly believe that if you are more positive, if you are more optimistic, and if you are less in fear, you have a better chance of your immune system fighting back. So I think it's fabulous that you are concerned for your parents, but a better way of handling it may be supporting them in a loving way, helping them come to the conclusions on their own, but not be a carrier of fear. I know, like I say, my son really, I know, loves us, but is coming from this place that we're not taking it seriously enough. And I keep hearing that, and I take it very seriously, but my serious way of handling it is different than yours and everyone else on this call. So try not to judge others in terms of how they're handling it. Try to support others in terms of how they're handling it, if that makes any sense.
Okay. And another question, and this is a really good one as well. Michelle brings this up, and she says, you know what, a lot of us adults are taking it, understand what's going on, taking it a little bit more serious. But a lot of the young, the teenagers, the young adults, there was, I think on the news where they said there were some millennials, they called it, who were out partying and coming together. So, my daughter at the beginning was even saying, hey, I'm going to meet so-and-so, we're going to go to the mall. And I had to say, no, you're not. So how do we support them, educate them on what's going on with also not making them fearful and causing conflict, right? Because when we're already sometimes when we're talking to our teenagers, it's not calm at times and we're butting heads. How do we come to the same page on that?
That's an excellent question, and it's a question that we should be asking without the virus. How do we communicate with young people in a way to help them understand that life has consequences, that the law of cause and effect always is in place, without creating fear? So, I mean, isn't this a great opportunity? Again, I really encourage people to keep looking at this situation in terms of opportunity. So I think that's a fabulous question, Mary, and as we figured...
Michelle brought it up.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take credit if I didn't bring it up.
Okay. I'm all over the place with all these little squares on my screen and questions off to the side, and it's like, where do I focus? So I need to try and keep my focus somewhere, and I'm going to try and keep it straight on. I think we should be looking at this in terms of that opportunity. How do we communicate to young people, teaching them about consequences without fear, right? And so, let me ask you, Mary, your kids are more in that age. I've got grandkids coming up like that. How would you talk to your kids about the the seriousness of this without imparting fear.
Well, sorry. Before that, just if anyone has their mic on, if we can just mute it because we can hear some background noise. Thank you. I'll be honest. I don't think I handled it that great at first. I think there were moments of panic, and I tried to kind of be very firm in the situation. And I think at first I freaked my son out, who was calm to begin with. And then I had to really look at myself and re-examine what I had done at that moment. And when I went within and figured out where's this coming from and how is this going to help my family, that's when I made the shift.
Beautiful.
And so once I made the shift, the way I spoke to them was a lot different. And I made it like, this is what's happening. But you know what? We cannot go outside at this point. We can hang out on our porch, have coffee, like hang out together. And then I said, hey, let's make a list of what we can do together during this time. And my son was happy when I said, hey, there's no school. So I think he was, I tried to add even a little humor because I think they pick up on our energy. And as I said, I had to examine, I looked at myself that I noticed at the beginning, my energy was off. And I usually I've done enough work to keep myself calm, but it overtook at one point. And so I took a child who was calm into panic. Right. And I had to examine that.
Right, but the key is you did. And so not expecting perfection. I think there's phenomenal learning in that. The only thing that I would add is, after the storm, after this is all finished, tell your kids exactly, own up and say, hey, in the beginning I didn't handle this because I was coming from fear. Show our vulnerability as parents. We're human beings. So how you handled it was perfect. Just add that extra, have the conversation and say, hey, guys, mommy's not perfect.
They know that. They know that.
Yeah, kids have a way of making sure that parents know that. Eh?
Yeah.
Exactly. But I would be honest and vulnerable by saying, hey, this is something that we've never seen in our life, and hopefully you will never see it again. But let's just realize that, it's interesting. In the beginning, I was a little bit more flippant because I'm a very positive person and I believe I'm protected by, from a spiritual perspective. But as news came out, I adjusted my behavior because I realized that it's not just me, it's for everyone else. So having the conversations about what this is all about, any fears that people have. I have, one of my clients who had an 11-year-old who was extremely fearful of this whole thing, and that's even before, that was a few weeks ago. There are a lot of young children who are sensitives. They have come forth to help us. They're the sensitives that are going to change humanity. And for them, this has got to be brutal. And so helping the kids feel fully, to allow them to express those feelings is really, really important. And treating them authoritarianly is not going to help, because here it is, they've got these intense feelings and we're just telling them what they have to do. So that's not addressing their situation. So I highly recommend lots of calm conversation and lots of feelings. I would sit around, a great opportunity. We have lots of time with our family. Maybe every day or every few days, sit around and say, how am I feeling today about this situation? There's nothing like openly sharing your feelings. What a great opportunity to get kids to start talking about their feelings. The language of feeling is really important, and as a society, we've forgotten that. I was raised, and I raised my kids. We really didn't talk about feelings a lot, especially as a man. I did not talk about feelings. There's an opportunity for us to surface the feelings, because there's got to be a tremendous gamut of feelings. I know I'm feeling them, and I've been doing this for a while. Because I've got in touch with my feelings, some of them are a little bit ugly and some of them are a little bit intense. And so I am taking time to process those feelings. An opportunity to talk to your children, even to talk to your parents. The person asked the question about their parents. Well, how are you feeling about this, right? Okay, instead of labeling and judging them that they're not taking things seriously, ask them how they're feeling.
That's a great point. And I just want to add too, also Michelle mentioned something, and Michelle, I went through it as well. When she said she had moments of panic on Thursday and again yesterday, and my daughter was adamant she was going to hang out with friends while off school. And I think what happens is, I think it's what you're saying is when we're telling them and we're coming from panic, you know, we have teenage girls, a lot of them are just going to want to do the opposite, not because they're not taking it seriously, but it's our approach. And I've been there, Michelle, I did it as well. And the minute that I shifted and switched, and I think the key here is the vulnerable conversation of really letting them know how we're feeling, because we're human beings. Like, let's take away mom and dad, and let's or brother, sister, or child, because we're a child as well, and just be a human being, and really start to be vulnerable with our feelings.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. The person that asked the question about the parents, just because you're adult children and your parents are elder, doesn't mean you can't be vulnerable and talk about it. I would much appreciate my son, instead of telling me I'm not taking it seriously, saying, "Gee, Dad, I'm really worried. I know you've had some health problems in the past. I'm really worried, and this is, I'm coming from fear." We would have had a much more meaningful conversation. Once again, if this situation is about opportunity, what about using the opportunity to communicate in a more heartfelt way, in a way that talks about feelings? Okay, with this intense fear that's out there, it's so easy to talk from the mind instead of talking from the heart. And I encourage everybody to think about that fear. I was reflecting on it this morning, and what I came to realize is that fear drives me to my mind. When I'm in fear, it's such an uncomfortable feeling that I automatically go to my mind to get me out of the fear. And it's really interesting, because that's the worst thing that I could do, because my mind is just going to intensify the fear. And so I thought about, okay, later today, I am going to sit with my fear. I'm going to go into the midst of that fear. Shaltazar says, go into the midst of your feelings like you're going into the midst of the fire. And the fear is very, very intense. Another suggestion would be get out your journal and have a conversation with this fear. Give it a voice, and you may find that it won't be, it won't have as much power over you, because you're avoiding it, you're resisting it, and that fear is driving you to your intellect, to your mind, to your logic, and that's what we're coming from. That's the problem. That's what this. I mean, think about it. The universe is slowing everything down so we have an opportunity to go within. Okay, we can't go to restaurants, we can't go to the mall, we can't go to the school. It's, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with that, with nothing to do? Well, what if you just be? What if we learn to be a bit more? So I'm going to recommend, I'm going to be doing this later today, I'm going to sit down with my fear and let it speak to me and see if I can get a deeper understanding of what's going on. And maybe I will be able to calm fear down. Maybe fear will be telling me that I'm thinking too much and not feeling enough. I have no idea what that conversation will be, but I know if I make fear my friend instead of my enemy, I won't feel quite as panicked and out of sorts. And I mean, one thing that I do is I use my joy mug. So today I went to the cupboard and I chose joy, because I want to have a little bit more joy in the midst of the fear.
So really what you're saying is, like, things are happening, but it's how we get to choose how we're going to move through this time.
Correct. That is the greatest power we have. The greatest power we have is if we choose to move through it differently. So when fear comes up, do we resist it, or do we speak to it, and do we allow it to tell us what's going on? How we respond to what's happening is the greatest power that we have, and most people have given away that power to their conditioned beliefs. We are operating on autopilot, right? You can't go out, oh my goodness, panic. You can't go to the restaurant, my wife and I, there's just the two of us. We go to restaurants 2 or 3 times a week, and it's like last night I said, oh my goodness, we have to eat home 7 days a week. What are we going to do? We're not used to eating home 7 days a week, right? Better go out to the grocery store. Better make sure we have enough stuff. So yes, absolutely. Take this time to slow it down so that your responses are more conscious. I think that's important. Often we react. One of my coaches early on taught me the distinction between reacting and responding. And reaction is more of that conditioned auto response, whereas responding is, she used to call it response-able. So we're responsible for our response. We own it. How are we going to choose to respond? How are we going to choose to respond? That's really, really important. And again, there's no coincidence that we have so much time available to us. There's no excuse to not slow things down and say, how am I responding to this? And how could I shift that response? And where is that response coming from?
Another point that Catherine makes, and I have to agree, it says that, what we're fearing is based in our feeling a lack of control. I think as a society, we're so into controlling everything, and I've had my own struggles at times with that, that's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and that's an interesting point, because what is that control? It's fear, right? If you sort of look at it, I need to control it because I am afraid if I'm not in control, something may happen that I don't like. Okay, what's the antidote to that? Realizing that you're not in control. Okay, this is a phenomenal opportunity to learn this lesson. Shaltazar says that we should become more comfortable with the unknown, because every moment of every day we walk into the unknown. The unknown that we're walking into now is certainly more intense, but they say to us that the power resides in how we choose to respond to that unknown. And so I think it's really, really important to realize that there's a lot we don't have control over. There are certain things we have control over, that being how we respond, but what's going to happen? I mean, I keep saying to people, whatever you've heard in the news, whatever the actions have been in the last week or so, brace yourself, because there's some big shocks coming. I have no idea what they are, but I do know that they're coming. And I'm preparing myself as to how I'm going to respond to those shocks. And if we do that, and one of the things my wife was watching Trudeau address the nation yesterday, and I was just walking by, and so I sat down and I listened to a few reporters asking him questions about why he didn't do this, and does he regret the decisions he made and how he handled this poorly. What a useless question, what a useless energy to put out there. We're in virgin territory here. We have never done this before. The worst thing we can do is criticize people for making mistakes. So I really think it's important to realize that desire to be in control is a fear that someone else is going to make a mistake, someone else is going to make a bad decision for us. I'm going to invite everyone to shift your focus to not trying to be in control of anything except how you respond. If you can switch that control to, I control how I respond to whatever comes my way. Not what's happening out in the world, because we can't control that right now.
It's our response. So that's great, Jeffrey. I just want to shift a little, because I know you and I have spoken about this as well too, is, everyone mostly on the call are entrepreneurs, and all of our businesses in some way are going to be affected. Maybe we can speak about that a little bit.
Well, I think, again, this is an opportunity, and it's really hard to think of it as an opportunity when we're going to be so economically adversely affected, okay? And some more than others, I invite everyone to have a sense of compassion, and if as opposed to thinking about just your own economic plight, think about some of the industries that are been brutally affected. Think of, in Toronto, we've closed down restaurants. Now, restaurants are a survival job for a lot of people. Sometimes it's that second income. They need the tips. They need that money to do what they have to do. Education is going to be affected. Here we're already educated. So there are a lot of people in difficult situations. I go back to that story of how I wasted the recessions when I was in business because I was feeling so down. So I invite everybody to try to let go of the fear and the remorse of you being economically affected. Try to boost your energy and start to think of creative ways, because if this world is going to change, and it will, there's got to be opportunity. And maybe something you offer, if you offer it in a different way, if you change the perspective of your offering, maybe there's a great opportunity for you in this. Okay? So I would, and I was coaching my son and daughter-in-law, who are both entrepreneurs. He runs an organization called the Youth Wellness Network, and my daughter-in-law is a yoga teacher trainer and a healer and a Reiki master. And I was encouraging on the call yesterday, think about how people are going to be affected by this, what they need or what they're going to need in the next coming months, and how what you offer can be positioned in a way to help them. And I highly recommend that as an entrepreneur, again, I if I only knew then what I know now, I use those recessions to feel sorry for myself, to worry about my sinking bottom line. I was so selfish. If we can take care of ourselves, if we can come from a place of confidence, if we know that we've been doing the work, and if you're part of this organization, or you're part of any organization, or you've been doing any personal development work, you are on the upper quartile. If you could think about how you can help humanity, I guarantee you will adjust your economic plight much better than if you look at it from a place of poor me, the victim, look what this has done to my income. And I'm not belittling the suffering that you are going through. Don't get me wrong. This is real. This is real. I've never seen it in my lifetime. Okay? But if you can say, all right, I'm here, I'm alive, hopefully all of us will have our health on the other end of this. What can I learn about this from my business perspective? What can I learn? Start thinking now of things that you can do with regard to your offering based on the fact that there's going to be less money in the system. There's going to be more people that are mad and angry when this is all over. What can I do from a business perspective, not from a taking advantage, but from a if I help them, I can benefit perspective?
I know with H.U.B Inc., we've gone online, digital, to continue to support our members or our guests, to continue to have these business accelerators so they can continue to learn and what they need for their business, with the cost going down half.
Right.
Very little.
Yeah, and as a coach, I've always focused more on one-on-one, and this is the first group Zoom experience that I've had. And it's like, whoa, okay, maybe I can help more people than just the one-on-ones. Maybe I can make it more affordable by coaching a whole bunch of people at once. Gee, maybe that's interesting. That helps humanity. It makes my services even more affordable. So try to start thinking about changes in your business based on the new paradigm that we're going to be coming into.
Yeah. Jessica also made a good point. She said the aviation industry is grounded, literally. So those people who are in that industry, pretty much nothing is happening for them.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest overall issues that we're going to have as entrepreneurs is that there's going to be, in the short term, less money available for people to buy our products and services, right? So what can we do about that? Think of every problem as an opportunity. Again, it's that perspective. If you think, oh my goodness, nobody's going to buy my whatever it is that we are selling, think about how you can help them because they don't have as much disposable income. What is it that you can do, right? How can you change your offering? How can you change the way you do business? Sheldazar has made it so clear to me that this is a potential for a paradigm shift. There's so much opportunity for us to change the way we do business. So think about how you've been doing business. Think about how you could be doing business in a way that is win-win. Often business thinks about win-lose, okay? I win, I get your money, and maybe you benefit, maybe you don't, right? So maybe we want to start looking at win-win. How can I win? How can my customers feel so good and feel that they've won, and how can I win, all right? And we have the brain power, we have the creativity. Once again, here we are with all of this available time. Please don't waste that time. Start thinking, as well as the other things that we talked about. Start, take out another list and start thinking about the things you can do in your business that will allow you to prosper in these new economic times.
Okay, that's great. Does anyone, I just want to open it up right now because we're at about the 45-minute point, so 15 minutes left. Is there anything specifically that anyone wants to bring up, even when we talk about entrepreneurship? Maybe if you want to mention what you do, maybe we can kind of look at that as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Before anyone does, you just gave me another idea. It's so interesting when you get into that power of creativity. What about members of H.U.B getting together, regardless of what your business is, and brainstorming ideas? I mean, when I grew up in the world of business, it was all about competition. If I had an idea, I had to keep it to myself for fear someone else would get the idea and profit from it. So what about using this time to get groups of entrepreneurs together to help each other? It has nothing to do if you're in different industries. Some of the ideas can be applied across industries. So, and Mary, maybe this is something that you want to spearhead. Maybe we could do it individually. How do you get together with other entrepreneurs and brainstorm? Because just the energy of brainstorming, someone gets a bit of an idea, someone adds to that idea, someone else adds to that idea. And what's really interesting is when we're finished, you have a better idea, okay, and everyone gets the benefit of it. There's that old...
That's our business accelerators. Just
perfect. All right. Great. That's terrific. But start doing it, doing it with someone that you're close to. A paradigm shift is 1 + 1 is not 2, but 1 + 1 is 11. And if we can start thinking that way, talk to other entrepreneurs and help them, and then they'll help you.
Yeah, I agree. We got a message from Sheila. It's a long one. I'm going to try and quickly read it. Our bodies collapse in the absence of breath, no life. That means the conscious choice to inhale and exhale on purpose and with intention over and over again. The first choice every time is to inhale and exhale again and again and again in the presence of energetic changes that are presenting. Not good, bad, right, wrong. All meaning is context dependent. Choices cannot be made effectively in the absence of choosing to breathe first, then often in the face of energetic charges, fear, etc. What do you think of all that, Jeffrey? There's a lot more, but I'm just kind of, it says we have...
It's very interesting that this virus is a respiratory virus, and if anyone is a fan of the late Louise Hay, if you look in her Heal Yourself book, respiratory issues are the fear of taking in life fully. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that this is a respiratory ailment, because I don't know about you, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I've had a fear of taking in life fully. So I think whoever asked the question, breath is important. I sort of read somewhere that we should be practicing deep breathing, because if this virus affects your breath, the stronger your lungs are, the stronger your respiratory system is, the better. And from a metaphysical perspective, breath is life. So the more we practice deep breathing, the more we will be able to get through this. And in order to prove that, why don't we just take a moment, and on the count of 3, everybody take a deep breath, close your eyes, okay, and just shift from whatever you've been thinking or feeling, and just feel that breath, because that's what this respiratory issue is not feeling life fully, the breath of life. So here we go on the count of 3, close your eyes and take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do it again, and this time, let us breathe in love, optimism, anything that feels really good. And on the exhale, we're going to clean out our lungs, we're going to clean out our respiratory system, any residue of fear, anxiousness, any stress, we're going to let that out. So again, on the count of 3, we're going to breathe in everything that feels good and high vibrating, and we're then going to exhale everything to clean out any lower vibrational residue in our body. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That was interesting.
What was interesting about it?
Well, I did feel some of my, fear and other energy from yesterday going out. It was like I was exhaling soot, so to speak. It was like, ooh, okay, so that was in my body, and if I didn't do that, respiratory cleaning, right? It's sort of like a vacuuming, so to speak. That soot would have remained today. And so I kind of cleaned out a little bit of residue, and I have a feeling that it's going to allow a little bit more positivity for me today.
Okay, that's great. The end of Sheila's message, I just wanted to add, she says, the virus is the metaphor of huge pattern interrupt, in how we choose to move through our world.
Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely is. There's no coincidence. I'm very into metaphysical, so there's if you start looking at the deeper understanding of all of this, it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And so the fact that it's breath, the fact that it is interrupting a pattern, it really is. Okay, and so maybe it's an opportunity to look at how we breathe. Maybe we have been going through life in a very shallow breath kind of way. So
we're holding our breath.
Or holding our breath, right. So thank you for that comment about breath, because I really do believe it relates to the virus. So start thinking about breath in terms of life. There's a lot of similarities. If we're holding our breath, we're holding on to something in life. If we are breathing shallow, we're not living life fully. There's a lot of stuff out there on breath. And, thank heavens this is happening at a time where we're in an advanced period of technology.
Yeah.
All we have to do is Google breath, and there's pranayama. There's so much. I mean, you could spend days and days looking at breath and how you're handling your breath and changing your breath. When I was going through my journey, I took a bunch of breath courses. So it's really kind of neat how we could take something as small as breath, and we could spend a few days looking at examining how we breathe, how it affects our vibration and our outlook. So, and I know myself, the minute you think that you're quarantined, so to speak, panic goes because you think that you're restricted. Yeah. Think of this as an opportunity.
Yeah. Another great point Catherine just made, and something I want to add to this that just triggered for me as well. She said, I'm quoting Kathy Colby from the Colby instrument I use, but she says, do nothing when nothing works. Another way to say when you feel overwhelmed, just breathe and get present. It will help clear your mind and calm you down. It's the same thing in business. Someone one time said to me, if when you're in a situation and there's like a little friction and you want to email someone back quickly, the first thing to do is do nothing. Just back away and even let it just sit with it and just see what comes up.
Mm-hmm. I'm a real big fan of surrender, and Schultezar has taught me a lot about surrender. Often people think surrender or that do nothing is a sign of weakness, and they lead me to believe that it's extremely powerful. And so I have been working a lot on surrender and what does surrender mean. Another little practical tip is when you're in that situation, breath may get you there, but simply asking the question, how would surrender handle this situation? How would surrender handle this situation? So when you're overwhelmed and you're not sure how to handle it because you just watch the news, et cetera, you sort of say, you ask the question, how would surrender handle that, right? And another variation on that, since we are trying to be as optimistic as possible, is ask yourself, how would optimism handle this situation? Keep asking those questions so that you can have that shift. I will suggest, though, to limit your exposure to social media and to the news, because it's a wormhole that can suck you in, and all of a sudden your energy has shifted and you're unaware of how it shifted. Okay, so it requires a lot of discipline because there's so much out there, and I don't know about you, but if you sort of start going through it, and when you stop, you realize that all it's done is intensified my fear.
Yeah.
And so if media, any kind of media, is not making you feel good, then limit it. I'm not saying don't be informed, but sometimes we go from being informed to being afraid, and I don't think that is healthy.
Yep. I just want to take this time, because we're down to the last 5 minutes, is that we are going to be having these calls every Tuesday at 10 a.m. All the way up to, I think, the end of March. So if you want to continue on these calls, we're going to be doing more techniques and just being there for each other. But if you know of anyone who needs the support and who wasn't maybe on the call, please invite them to this call. This is a free call. First I was going to put it for our H.U.B members, but I feel that all of us could use this. This is not just a H.U.B member moment. I think it's a moment to support all of us. So when we put this together, pass the link on, let anyone know if they need to connect with us over at H.U.B, and we'll send them the link. Let them know that we are here. And I just kind of want to end with, Jeffrey, if maybe you can kind of end on maybe something that we can do and come back on next Tuesday that we've maybe completed. Maybe, that whole accountability piece. Let's just try and see how we can kind of support each other.
All right. What I would suggest is I threw out a lot of stuff. I always do. That's my style. Reflect. As soon as you get off the call, just take a few minutes and pick one thing that's stuck in your mind. Okay? Don't do it as an intellectual exercise, but if something just felt interesting in what I said, okay, then write it down and commit to do it before next Tuesday. Okay. Now that can even be a change. I refuse to watch as much social media. I'm gonna once a day. I'm gonna think about how I feel, or tap into how I feel. Take one thing, just one thing that you're going to change or do differently because of this call. One of my favorite sayings is Lao Tzu: "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." So please take one step out of this hour and apply it to your life, okay? And then hopefully I would love if you would join us again next week. And if we can just keep adding one step at a time, we can not only change our lives, but we can change humanity.
I want to thank everyone for being on this call. Thank you for coming and wanting to find the support and have a more of an understanding with what's going on. Jeffrey, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy and you have many clients, but thank you for taking this time and giving us your time for all of March. I really appreciate it. Everyone, again, 10 a.m. next Tuesday. If you continue to want to have support, be safe. And I look forward to seeing everyone here next Tuesday. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.